Hey guys, today I wanted to do a video that was a little more off the cuff, a little more kind of thoughts in motion about a Reddit post that I saw the other day. And I know a lot of people are going to hear Reddit post and you're going to be like, uh-oh, what happened now? Nothing bad, actually, but it was somebody posing the question of what could Bungie do to make patrol zones more engaging for players? And the top comment is, of course, the right answer. Loot. Loot makes everything better. And I've always had this idea that these patrol zones should have more focused loot, similar to what we see on the Throne World, on Neomuna, on, to a lesser degree, because the weapons could sure use a refresh, Europa. Now, the problem with something like Europa is all of those weapons are either tied to, world boss type enemies that happen during blizzards and things like that, or are tied to quests that you pick up from Varix. So farming those weapons is much less effective because you don't always get those reliably from sources across the map. And the Throne World and Neomuna could also be a little better about how you acquire those weapons. So ultimately, the way I look at it is all of these patrol zones need to have a selection of farmable loot. And I know the popular thing right now for Bungie has been, when an expansion comes out, make the loot craftable. And I know a lot of people really love that. And crafting is healthy for the game, but not to the extent that it is currently in the game. And I don't want this to turn into a big debate of crafting versus not crafting, but there is value. Say Neomuna, for example, when you're running Terminal Overload, there is value in running that because each of those 3 zones that can take place in drops a unique gun that cannot be earned through other methods generally. The shotgun, the machine gun, and the SMG. And that is something that does keep players coming back to that activity and that destination because they want to earn that gear. They want to get the role they're looking for. And when that activity is active on that day, that loot is infinitely farmable because that is the activity of the day. That's the current rotation. So as long as you continue to complete terminal overload activities, you're going to keep getting those SMGs as long as you have keys for them. And, that's a whole other thing. I don't necessarily like the idea of locking out loot that is already limited to a specific activity behind a key or something. It creates an additional level of scarcity that I don't think this loot needs. We don't need more layers of scarcity. We need to make loot more prevalent. And so I think about something like the EDZ. Imagine if these weapons with field tested, something like the Battle Scar, which I love. I love the Battle Scar so much. The only reliable way to get a Battle Scar is when it is in the Lost Sector rotation, when it is that day's, in one of those 4 weapons in the Legend and Master Lost Sectors. And it's cool that we have a chance to, I won't say target farm, but kind of narrow farm that particular weapon from Lost Sectors. I think that's really cool. But it doesn't, fit thematically. It's cool to have this idea that, this is a gun that feels like it belongs in the EDZ. It's kind of old. It feels, well worn. That's why they call it, that's why the perk field tested kind of fits that weapon very well. And so I think it would be really cool if that weapon dropped from heroic public events reliably. If that weapon dropped from doing, other activities, maybe it has a small chance to drop from chests that as you gather them. Maybe it's a very small chance. Maybe it has a slightly higher chance to drop from a regular Lost Sector. If the chance to drop from a chest is maybe, say, 1%. or 5%, let's say. It shouldn't be too high. You don't want to open a chest and get one every time because that devalues the chase. Nobody is going to participate in those other activities. But let's say if it was 2.5% from any chest in the field, or 2%, something like that. Maybe the rarity of like a raid exotic. Then a public event. Maybe it has double that to drop from a regular public event. Maybe when you do a heroic public event, it has a 20% chance to drop. When you do a normal lost sector, maybe it has a 10% chance to drop in addition to the other loot you could potentially get from that lost sector. From a heroic public event, maybe it's a 50% chance. When all of those chances add up, you're starting to get 3, 4, 5 rolls of this gun just by going around and doing things on the map. If there's no public events up, go run a lost sector. There's a 10% chance you get the gun. And if that lost sector doesn't do it, run it again, run a different one, whatever you want to do. But now you also have the opportunity, hey, there's a public event starting over here. Let's go over there and run it. And now there's incentive to make it heroic because it's a 50% chance to drop now. So now you've got all these players kind of congregating around heroic public events again in a way that the community is not currently motivated to do. And I think that's really potentially exciting. And, you could do a couple guns here and there. Maybe if it's not a new gun every season, because I understand it's not as easy as we probably all think to take a gun and just say, okay, let's put it in the game. But what if we took some old EDZ weapons and maybe on a rotating basis, whatever, if the EDZ is the focus of this season's activity, for example, or this episode coming up, I maybe wouldn't attach it to episodes because I don't think the frequency would be enough. But let's just say, every X amount of months, hey, you know what? We're going to drop a new weapon, or at least every episode. Let's just say like 2 destinations get a refreshed weapon. All right, so the EDZ gets, the battle scar or something. I would obviously want something different at this point, not just another world loot drop, but it gets added to that. Maybe they reprise an old gun. And then maybe they reprise the original, not Jurassic Green. I don't even remember the original gun. The Lincoln Green, I think it is. Maybe they reprise that into the pool with new perks. Take some of the old Tangled Shore weapons like a Trackless Waste or an Ether Doctor and put that into the Cosmodrome loot pool. And now you have people farming on the Cosmodrome. Take some old Omelon weapons and put them on Nessus. Or for me personally, take some of those Season of the Chosen weapons. Like a gun like Cartesian Coordinate is still so good that when it comes up on Xur or when it comes up on the Gunsmith, people are saying you have to go get this gun. Put Cartesian Coordinate back in the loot pool. Add some perks to it maybe. Add an origin trait to it. Imagine field tested on a Cartesian Coordinate. That could be crazy. But, obviously you would have to do something different, because that's going to be Nessus. So make kind of a Nessus world drop perk that goes on these weapons. Take the Season of the Chosen weapons, like the Extraordinary Rendition, and put that in the loot pool with some refreshed perks and a new origin trait, because that fits thematically with, the fact that the Helpha Selectus is there. The Cabal are there in force. Specifically Keitel's Cabal are there on that tank. Put the Season of the Chosen weapons, maybe like every other episode, refresh a gun there. Go into the Moon. Give those guns a fresh coat of paint, another rework on some of those perks maybe, and give them an origin trait, something spooky. I mean, honestly, you could probably just take the Search Party perk from the Festival of the Lost and just throw that on those guns. That's better than nothing. And I don't want to play the zero-sum game of better than nothing, but it's better than nothing. Just taking an existing perk and saying the Moon's spooky, let's make these guns spooky. That would work. That would be enough for me. And hey, you know what? Maybe every other season, maybe make a new Moon gun. Maybe put something exciting, maybe rework, similar to what they're doing with the Prophecy Dungeon in the latest update. They're refreshing some of the guns, they're rotating some guns in, some guns out. If you want to keep it to 5 or 6 guns on a destination, do that. Take some old guns out, especially ones if they're not as popular with the player base. Put some refreshed options in, maybe every once in a while, maybe once a year even. Make a new gun for these destinations, and it doesn't have to come out with the expansion. Maybe in the first, when the expansion comes out and that first episode happens, maybe you refresh the loot on 3 destinations. Maybe the Dreaming City gets a new gun because it's a focus destination. Maybe the EDZ and the Cosmodrome get them together because they're both on Earth. Cool. And then the next episode comes out. Hey, you know what? We made a new gun for Nessus, and we made a new gun for the Moon. Have fun with that. And especially, this is so, especially important to me personally, make new weapons for Neomuna, make new weapons for the Throne World, and make new weapons for Europa, and give Europa origin traits and refresh the perks on a lot of those guns, because a lot of those guns have the potential to be incredible, but they came at a time when sunsetting just happened and Bungie was hyper aware of power creep. Make some weapons that are maybe Deepstone inspired and come with the Deepstone origin trait. Make some guns that come with the Europa origin trait. Make the Deepstone origin trait the Europa one. I'm okay with that. I think that would be really cool. And add a weapon to that pool once a year that's farmable from all these different sources, so that players have a reason to go to Europa and maybe search out that new weapon with that new perk. I would love to have new guns with the nano tracer rockets. I don't know if I actually have the name of that down. Hold on. I think that was the name. Like I said, off the cuff. Yeah, nanotech tracer rockets. See, I'm smart. I want more guns with nanotech tracer rockets. Imagine a scout rifle with nanotech tracer rockets. Imagine a faster firing SMG. Imagine what you could do with maybe an adaptive auto rifle with that perk on it. There is so many, or a faster firing pulse rifle that procs that a little bit quicker. Maybe a slower firing fusion that's more likely to proc the rocket when you hit the bursts, especially with high impacts kind of being more popular than they've ever been. Imagine a nanotech tracer rocket, a stasis fusion, high impact, chill clip, and nanotech tracer that just keeps popping those. Or, something along those lines. I think stasis plus nanotech tracer rockets would be incredible. And right now I know we have that on the waveframe GL from there, the heavy waveframe. But put that on a gun that's going to be more readily usable. I want to see more weapons with that perk on it. I want to see more weapons with the Psycho Hack perk from the Throne World. Because I think a lot of people forgot just how good that origin trait was. Just to read this for you, sustained damage from this weapon lowers the target's damage output for a short duration. Granted, we have perks that do that now, like Slice. But that's just an origin trait. You can put that on any gun and get that effect. You can use that. I remember early on when Valve the Disciple was the new raid. I know it wasn't the popular thing to do at the time, but we were running around with Divinity and everything, and I threw on my Tarnation because I said, you know what? This thing has Psycho Hack. I'm going to help my team stay alive a little better, and I just want to see how much damage it does. And I did a respectable amount of damage. I was closer to the top than probably anybody expected me to be, and I was reducing that damage. So when somebody did get hit by Rolk in those early days where, we're kind of running around with chickens with our heads cut off, it made a little bit of a difference. And I think that matters. And I think having new guns for that, reinvigorates the Throne World for one, and encourages players to engage with that zone again. But two, kind of keeps these traits in the mind space. And it reminds people, oh yeah, this origin trait is really good. Maybe I want to go and finish crafting that Tarnation from back then, because I have an idea for a build I can do with that. And it suddenly increases the value of all of those weapons. Because if one weapon comes out and it's really good, then people are going to start theory crafting. They're going to say, okay, well, this scout rifle comes with that. And I bet if I do this kind of build with this scout rifle, I could do something really cool with that. And I think that's awesome. And it lends itself more to the build crafting. I think the world loot pool was one of the biggest mistakes Bungie made by just consolidating all of the loot drops into kind of this one bland, this is what you get from everything type pool. And they're kind of correcting that in the playlist activities, in the big pinnacle activities, the rituals is what I'm really trying to say. But having this kind of thematic loot with these destinations and refreshing it at any kind of regular interval is going to get players more excited about being on those destinations. And, if an archetype of weapon gets buffed, all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I need to go to Nessus because I bet that shotgun they released 3 seasons ago, I bet that thing is really good now. I want to go pick one of those up. I have an idea for a build. It's going to be crazy. Where is failsafe? When is the last time anyone has said, where is failsafe? And, for me personally, what I would probably do, because you don't want to, if you're not going to just convert those at the time, into whatever guns, I think the smarter thing to do, honestly, would be to allow those vendors to, again, similar to how they do it on Neomuna and the Throne World, focus those weapons at that planetary vendor and allow you to kind of hold those engrams there. So you get the engrams, kind of like what happens with Shaxx, what happens with the Vanguard, what happens with the Drifter, things like that. Have those engrams held there at that vendor and allow you to focus those individual weapons and say, you know what? I have 5 engrams. I want 5 shots at this scout rifle because I want to see if I can get one with the roll I'm looking for, and allow people to focus that loot. And I think that's where things do start to get better. There's a certain randomness, and maybe it's just a thing of those engrams drop from those activities. You get a 50% chance to get that engram from a heroic public event, maybe. And then allow people to focus the weapons they want. When you at least create that amount of choice, that's a game changer for a lot of people. And that takes out one of the elements of randomness. Because now, instead of hoping you get one of 5 guns from this drop, now you're just focusing the one you want. And maybe those guns still drop from those activities, which I think is better. We need more loot sources, not less. Let a gun drop, but also let an engram drop that I can go and focus later. Just like we do with these ritual activities, like we do with Iron Banner, like we do with Trials. Let those guns drop, but also let me focus more of them later to get specifically the gun I'm looking for. If you were to do that, I think my cat is yelling at me, I'm sorry. If you were to do that, and you were to make a change like that, you would immediately reinvigorate patrol zones and get players excited about just landing on a destination and just kind of mindlessly doing stuff, chatting with friends, being social, meeting random guardians in the field, and having stupid dance parties like we used to back in the day. Bring back some of that community energy, because nobody wants to be in the patrol zones unless they have to be there. Everybody wants to be somewhere doing something in Destiny. Most players either feel like, hey, I need to catch up, I need to make progress, or are just like, hey, I'm looking for the next challenge, or I'm looking for this very specific thing, and this planet just happens to have a lot of chests, and I need gunsmith engrams. Take away an element of that. Put the loot back into the destinations, do away with the world loot, and let players pick what they want. Let players have more agency over the loot they get and reward them with more of it. The worst thing that could happen from a scenario like this is a player gets exactly the role they want faster than they expected. But that at least brings that energy. It's not just like, oh, I crafted the role I want, yippee. It's, oh my god, I got the drop I wanted. I need to go use this thing right now. And now that player now has another goal. They want to go use that thing. It's not just, I made exactly the thing I wanted because I got 5 of these red borders. It's, I got this gun, let's go. We need to hit PvP. We need to hit Gambit. We need to, yes, people play Gambit's really good. Just stop it. I need to go into this raid because now I have a new DPS build. Let's go to the dungeon checkpoint, and I want to test this out on the ogre in the Cosmodrome dungeon, the Grasp of Avarice. I'm blanking on all the names today. But that in my opinion is what would really help to reinvigorate that. And I hope that's something that's on Bungie's radar. And I want that to be, I would love if that was an eventual next step. And we will ultimately see what happens. But that's my hope, is that Bungie kind of sees the light with that and says, hey, you know, let's put the loot back on the destinations and let's give people a reason to interact with this content. Let's give people a reason to go back to the throne world once they've done all of their, you know, story, once they've done the raid, for more than just it's today's lost sector. Yeah. So if you guys agree with that, cool. You know, let me know if you guys have other ideas, or if you have ideas of guns you'd love to see come back and something like that, let me know. And otherwise, I will catch you on the next video. Bye.